Batman Begins came out in 2005 and was directed by Christopher Nolan. Leading up to its release, Marvel was on quite a roll. Sure, they had a few missteps, but overall they were coming out with films such as the first two Spider-Man and X-Men movies, which were beginning to define a new age for the superhero genre. DC, on the other hand, were gracing us with gems such as Batman and Robin and Catwoman. All honesty, those movies were bad. As in really bad. And then one man, a savior, arose from the shadows with his talented crew in hopes to save Batman. And they did. Thank you. This film explores Batman's origin, which at the time hadn't been done on screen before. You're shown who Bruce Wayne is before he puts on the cape, from where and who he got his training from, as well as what it is that leads him down this path. And this, to me, amongst many other aspects, is where the film exceeds, actually making you care about the man behind the mask. Because what a lot of superhero movies tended to do, and to an extent still do, is only have you invested in the action scenes. But here, both roles are equally as interesting. I'd even argue that Bruce Wayne's story is more compelling. And of course, in order to acknowledge that, I have to mention Christian Bale, who embodies both sides of the character so well. He shows a lot of range in this way, from Bruce Wayne's charm and charisma, and at times arrogance, to being very intimidating as Batman. I should also mention Bale's body transformation. For those of you who don't know, only a year before this film was released, he was in a film called The Machinist, for which he had lost a ton of weight. He basically went from looking like The Walking Dead to this beefcake, within a very short period of time. Just take a moment to process that. Michael Caine as Alfred was essentially perfect casting. You can tell that him and Bruce have a very close relationship, and in many ways he acts as a sort of fatherly figure, but even more as a mentor, and I like that. Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox, also great casting. He's very likable in the role, and his dynamic with Bruce is a lot of fun. Gary Oldman I often find to be somewhat overlooked in this trilogy as Commissioner Gordon. He's fantastic as the one cop that Batman can trust and fully rely on. He gets to be part of the action and is pretty much Batman's sidekick, which is why you didn't need a Robin for this film. When you watch this and take into consideration the Batman films that had come before it, it becomes clear that Nolan's vision was to make a much darker and more grounded version of Batman. He's even said that their goal was to create a heightened reality for this character, one which is a lot more realistic, but still keeps some of those elements that go along with this kind of story. And despite having this darker tone, it still manages to incorporate humor that works. Now don't get me wrong, I love the new Marvel movies, but their humor is sort of hit or miss for me. I suppose it all comes down to who directs them, but here the humor works because it comes from situations and interactions that tie into the story. It isn't just randomly referencing things that'll appeal to a certain demographic. I want to touch on Gotham City, which, throughout all three films, is so well realized, it's practically a character on its own. The sets they built for Gotham are mind-blowing. You'd be surprised just how much of this film is practical and not CGI, which by now has become one of Nolan's trademarks. You've really got to hand it to the people behind the scenes that help bring this city to life. Not to mention that a good chunk of this film was shot on location. The score by Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard has become iconic. Every time I hear it, just chills running down my body. The action scenes are also very memorable because they take a bit of a different approach in that you see Batman from the point of view of the criminals, and that way you feel his menacing presence as he essentially terrorizes them. It was also cool to see some of the cast members from Following have some cameos in this film. It just put a smile on my face. In regards to negatives, I only have a few. There's one or two odd editing choices. There's a scene that has a very outdated punching sound effect. And there's a scene in which Batman, I'll say, exits the scene. And I legitimately don't know what's happening there. Also, Katie Holmes. I know she gets a lot of criticism for her performance. I don't think she's awful. She just definitely isn't on the level of her co-stars, which, if you look at the cast, it's kind of understandable. As far as superhero origin films go, Batman Begins is my all-time favorite. They got the character right, and I applaud them for that. I'm going to give Batman Begins an A. I hope the lighting in this video wasn't too distracting. I'm back in school now, so unfortunately I only get home at inconvenient times. Just the way things are. But I appreciate your support, so until next time, thanks for watching.